can you say that 3 people dressed, and let me use that term, but using a police vehicle could kidnap someone or be charged for kidnapping, allegedly, and could be doing manslaughter or murder or whatever. How there are some police officers who never get even close to that, and how come there are those who cross that line? Same thing with soldiers, prison officers, and you name it. So we're looking at foundation. I have a story about mine, and we know it already, those of you who have been following us. It's important, especially for low self-esteem, people who are susceptible to that. How do you strike that balance? So let's go to a break. And when we return, we'll start with CJ's early life. You know someone who needs to hear this program this morning, please let them know. And also we'll be sharing some news from the counter-trafficking unit, who have been working diligently behind the scenes to put their dent on crime, which is human trafficking. And they've made some inroads recently. You'll hear about that and understand how much work that this unit is doing without much fanfare.
Indeed.
All right, so
more good news.
Yes, so let's go to that break, and when we return, we'll start with early life. If you identify with what CJ has to say, then you need to know you will know what to fix. All right, we'll be back.
Slavery, a terrible time in our history. The kidnapping, buying and selling of people for profit, the exploitation of another human being. It still exists today. It has a new name, human trafficking. Anyone can be a victim. There is forced labor, sexual exploitation, and domestic servitude. Human trafficking is a worldwide problem and an emerging concern for us here in Trinidad and Tobago. If you know of or suspect human trafficking activity, call the counter-trafficking hotline at 800-4CTU or 800-4288. Human trafficking is a crime. Identify it, report it, stop it. A message from the counter-trafficking unit of the Ministry of National Security.
50 by 20, 50 by 25.
This is Kyron Pollard. When you play, do it the legal way. Don't bet on illegal gaming.
Do you want to support our work at Eye on Dependency? Here are 3 ways to do so. You can make a donation to the Eye on Dependency account at Republic Bank. You can follow the Eye on Dependency page on Facebook. You can subscribe to the Eye on Dependency channel on YouTube. Liking, commenting, and sharing the live on a Sunday also helps. Thanks in advance for your support.
And of course, to those listening on I-95.5 FM.
We apologize to you on Facebook and YouTube. We didn't realize the live was not up until we went to that break. So you missed the intro, and we're sorry about that. Things happen sometimes, but in a nutshell, we each one and every one of us, and every good parent and who understands the importance of education and qualification and certification will want your child to go to university. However, how prepared are they for that beast where they are away from you without your scrutiny and supervision, and how are they going to deal with it? So this all has to do with foundation, and also the 2 callers you heard in our promo, they actually prompted the discussion to go further, with the lady calling and at some point in time, we'll ask Tom to play the promo again so you could hear. And what they said, we edited it, of course, for time purposes on the promo. But the lady had one view and the gentleman had one view. So we will have that discussion in the next hour. But to start, let's see how we can dissect. How do we prepare our children from saying no to drugs when they go outside, saying no to partying and having a good time and letting their head down too low and taking risks and being vulnerable? How prepared are our children, or are you preparing your children for that journey?
And what kind of foundation, as you mentioned, foundation are you setting for your children? Are they being forced to grow up faster than they should? Are they enjoying their childhood? Are they prepared to reach out to you if they need help?
Or are they growing up too sheltered and not ready to face the wolves when they reach out there?
Yeah.
What do? You keep them in a cage, and then when it's time to let them out of the cage now, how are they going to deal with what they're going to meet? So let's go to that first one.
First
right,
one,
early.
CJ talks about her early life. So she talks about growing up and what her family dynamics were and how that may have contributed to the trouble she found herself in.
Let's hear CJ.
I grew up abroad in Malaysia and I was there until I was 18. I grew up in a family that my mum drank a lot. There was a lot of domestic violence between my parents. I thought that if I behaved myself, my parents wouldn't fight. As a child, you seem to think that you're the cause of your parents' problems. So from an early age, I started to just behave the best I could at home. So even if I got in trouble at school, I wouldn't bring that home. I wouldn't tell them. I'd try and sort all my own problems out because at home, mum was always drinking. They were fighting. They had loads of issues going on between them. And I also had a younger sister that I wanted to protect from all of this as best as I could. So by the time I got to 18, I had already formed sort of two personalities. Somebody who outside didn't really fit in with her peers because she felt a lot maturer than them, having to sort of be the parent at home. And that caused me to seek out people who are older than me to hang out with. And I guess at that time I just wanted to prove to myself I was older, so I was doing things that I shouldn't have done even at that age. I was going out to clubs and going out to parties when I was 15, 16. My parents had no idea about any of this. I was sneaking out from home and hanging out with people who I probably shouldn't have hung out with, and then coming home and still getting good grades, being the good girl at home, trying to keep my family together despite all this stuff going on, because I couldn't tell my family how I felt about seeing my parents being abusive to each other, and not really being able to tell anyone in my peer group the truth about that either, because I didn't think they understood. I was in an international school and everyone seemed to have perfect lives, even though at the time, now I know that they didn't, but everyone does the same thing. They hide the issues and they don't ask for help and they don't talk to people.
How much younger was your sister?
She was 2 years. So those were the two sides of my personality. And when I got to 18 and I could go abroad, sort of back home to the United Kingdom to go to university, I was like over the moon because I felt like I could be free. I could be my real self, who I thought was this other person. And so that's what I did when I got to university. I clung to that side, and still I didn't tell my family anything. So at uni I got into debt the first year by using my student loan to just go out, and I became like a person pleaser. So when I had friends, I'd just be like, oh, I'll go and buy all the drinks, and the debt I was incurring was because I was just trying to do the same things I was doing at home, look after people, make sure people are all right, make sure everyone's okay, having a good time, and not thinking about me, not thinking about I'm getting into debt here, I need to sort out my own issues. So after about 2 years in uni, I was in about $2,000 worth of debt, and to me that was massive. Like, red letters coming on the door, you're going to go to prison, and I was just like, this is ridiculous, like this is not me. And all the time I didn't tell my family, I didn't tell my parents. They assumed that I was just living a really quiet life at university.
Now, you think this had a little bit of low self-esteem, you think, because of what was happening at home?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there was this conflict. I didn't know who I was. I was trying to prove myself to be one side, and then the other side of me, was yearning for any sort of affection that I wasn't getting from my parents because of the issues that they were having. So absolutely, I think I did have lower self-esteem. I was just looking to find my identity in who I was, and yet still trying to live these double lives.
Where did your parents, what did they do for a living?
Okay, so my dad was an English teacher at a school and a university, and my mum she was in the fitness industry, so yoga, aerobics, all of that sort of stuff.
And did you ever figure out what were the issues between them that they were fighting all the time?
Absolutely. I think with my mum, there's a lot of deep-seated unhappiness, and again, I don't think she really knew who she was. She's mixed race, so her father is Nigerian and her mum's Dutch, and she grew up in England suffering racism, having the issues of two different cultures in the same family in a time when there was this idea that children should be seen and not heard. So she was never able to explore that, and she sort of was shunned from her Nigerian side. We weren't allowed to talk about it. She grew up, her father banned them from speaking about it because he had fled Nigeria because of crime and stuff that had gone on there. So there was a lot of issues in her own family that never got sorted out, and that she carried with her, and she turned to drink, and that caused problems because my father didn't know how to control her. I guess is the best way to say enough's enough, let's get help. He just became part of the enabling circle, and so did my sister and I. We became part of that enabling circle where Mummy would get really drunk, stay up half the night, throwing things, attacking things, and in the morning we'd be so glad it's over, we would just pretend everything's normal again and just be like, we love you, Mummy, and we'd never ever deal with it. So it became something that was part of our family, something that was normal, something that, she was just allowed to drink and behave like this and have no consequences. And it was only, sort of now, at the end of my prison sentence, being free, that I've been able to reflect and look back as to why that cycle and all that stuff happened. Is because there was no help, there was no consequences, that behaviour was just allowed.
Did they stay together?
They're going through like a separation at the moment. I guess they were very close to separating when all of this happened to me, and then I suppose because of me they decided to stay together throughout the time that I was in prison. And then the minute I was released, my dad said, I'm done. So in a way he was trying to be strong and be the support for my mum, because as you'll find out, my mum raised my daughter, so there's a lot to come out.
Right, so that was part one. CJ talking about her early life and the fact that her family was a stable one, but unstable to those living in it. Her mother had a problem with alcohol. Father did not know how to deal with it, so the children were left to basically take care of themselves and to take care of each other while their mother was going through this. Her mother obviously never sought help, and her behavior turned CJ basically into a caretaker. There are some families where the parents turn the children into the parents, basically, as they have to fill that role. They end up growing up faster than they should and be taking responsibility for things that they shouldn't be. And when they're finally free, as CJ said, when she finally got the chance to go back to the UK and live her life, she continued with those behaviors of looking out for everybody else and not herself, about following the crowd and wanting to fit in and wanting to be a part of things, which is exactly what she learned while growing up with an alcoholic mother.
We know this, we know this type of conversation is not a popular one because we tend to not pay attention to it and overlook that fact. But the world's changing, people, and it's not up to us to ignore this, because we hear these stories. We know people who tried university and fell by the wayside. There are a lot of drugs. All the drugs you think, they are available to our university students, whether you want to think about it or not. I know it's something that you care not to think about, and people say, no, don't give that any life. Well, honestly, it's alive and well. So we could try to sidestep it all we want. It is real, and how we prepare our child. But one thing I've always noticed when I speak to school children and youngsters, and I ask one question: how many of you here sit by yourself? And I asked this in prison, and every prison I've asked this, I went to with Vision and Mission this past week. When I asked the question, how many of you here ever sat by yourself or with just your brother or sister and planning that you can't wait till you reach the 18 to leave home? Almost every hand goes up in the air. And these are people sitting in prison. So we have to understand that not everyone, when a youngster, when a child is planning to leave home as soon as they can, that is a sign of an issue.
Correct.
And then on the other hand, there's the other side where you protect your child from everything. They can't go out, they can't go to a party, they can't socialize, they can't, not even sports in some cases. And so you bottling up all of that in that youngster. And from the time they reach the university, they're glad to leave. Now, one thing CJ said about when she got into trouble, she didn't want to tell. You know why? Because that fear of being ridiculed. You know, you're stupid just like your father. You're worthless just like your father. You know, I've heard some of that.
Or just having her parents be disappointed in her, you know, all of that pressure to be a good student and to behave. And she spoke about that, you know, she always wanted to be well behaved so that she didn't contribute to the chaos that was happening in her household. So, of course, you don't want to let your parents know that you need help because you think that you will be letting them down.
Right. But the catch here is who then to tell? Because look, she got into trouble for not telling them. So to run the risk, remember, CJ ended up in £2,000 debt. And to get her out of prison, the mother had to mortgage the house, and it turned out to £47,000. Which one cheaper? It's obviously speaking. So if you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency, and we are going through breaking down what he just said, preparing you so you can prepare your child for that university step. I mean, transitioning from primary to secondary school is already a difficult thing.
Correct.
This higher education is always even more difficult. So let's go to part 2, where she speaks about university life.
Yes, and which is quite different to other forms of school because you're embarking on an educational journey, but you're also expanding your social circle and learning meeting a whole lot of new people, places, and things that either you've been exposed to or not. Whether you have been exposed to or not, it is going to be overwhelming in many cases. And it's very difficult, based on my own experience, not wanting to go to university, but being propelled into it. I wasn't ready, like many people who enter university for the first time. Not ready to go, especially if you're traveling abroad to another country. But I know that the experience here at UWI may be familiar to many people, but just listen out for the similarities because the university experience is similar wherever you go.
Let's go to university life with CJ.
In the UK, unfortunately, it's pretty bad around alcohol. It's not as bad as America, but in your first week, it's called Freshers Week, and every night you go out clubbing, partying, and there's this expectation and culture that you're going to drink a lot and you're going to show how tough or how mature you are by the amount you can drink. And so you will see a lot of drunk students, some not making it home, some collapsing outside of clubs, if there are house parties, funneling, so like hoses coming out the top window to the bottom, and you have to stand there and consume whatever they put down there. And you have freshers reps who are, so I ended up becoming a freshie rep in year 2, and it's sort of like a privileged position where you go back to the hall and you look after those freshers and you plan all the activities they're going to do, and especially with a lot of the UK universities, they have halls of residence, so you stay in the hall and each hall sort of like competes against each other and the idea is to raise money for charity, but a lot of the time this is used as an opportunity to drink as much as you can, pay for alcohol, and all that money contributes towards charity, but the essence, you're 17, 18, 19, 20 is just to get drunk and have a great time with your friends. And obviously, again, things creep in, like smoking marijuana, taking harder drugs. So actually, I grew up in a country where it was illegal to have any drugs, and like the first night I was there, I got really drunk and I had a cigarette, and then someone passed me what I thought was a cigarette, and I just smoked, and I said, oh, this really tastes disgusting, I don't want it. And the guy was like, yo, chill, it's just, and he said like a name, like I didn't know, and I was like, what's that? And he was like, said another name, and I was like, what's that? Because I was just this naive girl who'd lived abroad, and he's like, it's marijuana. And I was just like, I grabbed my neck, and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna die, because I'm still in the mindset of where I grew up. And he was just looking at me like, what are you saying is okay? And then again, that peer pressure's coming in, like don't overreact, this is totally uncool. And I was just like, oh, is it okay? He's like, yeah, it's totally fine, everyone does it, it's fine. And so that's how it can start, from something where you just think, oh, I'm never going to be that kind of person, I'm not going to take it, because you've got a mindset of druggies sitting in a den, in a really horrible situation, to then being offered it in a place where you're comfortable, you're happy with people you've just met, you're having the time of your life, and it's just a step which isn't too serious because this guy said it isn't, So, and then that can happen just as easily from cigarettes to marijuana, from marijuana to ecstasy to whatever else goes on after that.
And did have all of that in university? You saw
absolutely,
all of those?
Absolutely, yeah. First week is just people find out who they are, and it's almost, it can break you, because you can say, oh, I'm going to go to university, and all I'm going to think about is pleasing my parents, doing really well, getting a job. And then you can experience that in your first week and think, oh my god, I've met these amazing people, we speak about the same things, we have the same interests, but yet they party, they do this, so surely that's okay. And it measures people. Like if you've had a good upbringing, I think, loving parents, good home, you're able to say, you know what, I love what you're doing, but tonight I'm going to stay in and study because this is what I want. But for people who have lower self-esteem, who maybe haven't had that affection, that love from home, and who want to please people, are more likely to say, actually, no, I'll put the work aside, I'll go out, to the point where it's too late, they've got a third, or they're dropping out, and whatever else is going on in their life. It really just depends on the person and how strong their own principles are. Because I knew people who were like, no, I don't want to do that. And they would be like, come on, the peer pressure. Be like, no, I don't want to do that. And in a way, those are the people, now I look back, I think, I admire you more than the people who just followed. And I think when you're younger, you don't see that. You just think, oh, I'm part of the crew, I'm part of the group, and therefore I'm safe, I'm good. Whereas a lot of people who actually stood their ground and just said, I don't need to do that, who maybe people said they were losers, at the time at university, actually they were the ones who did really well. I know a lot of people who've done really well and done both, but they knew when to say no. Like, I had a really big weekend, but now I must really study hard, so no. So it's just key that you're able to really know what's important to you, why are you doing something, and are you doing something too much? Is there a point when you should just say no and be able to get that balance between having fun and getting what you want?
This one is so important.
Yeah.
This one, if you'll allow me, Natasha.
Yeah, sure.
So the question is, are you a follower or a leader? Or are you sending a follower or a leader to university? Because you see that Freshers Week
Yep.
is the beginning of something for your child. So would your child be the one who will stand on the side in a party and cheer on, or would your child be the one to jump on a table with a drink in hand and wind down to the ground? and all of a sudden want to be everybody to pay attention to your child. Would your child be that one? How would you know? Or would your child be the one to body slam a table with drinks on it so that everybody will cheer on and ray and rah?
Or who will consent to being, doing that bake egg thing, or, trying to consume as much alcohol as possible, shortest space of time.
Or would your child be the one who would find a vulnerable student somewhere and have their way with them? Or would your child be the one to give in to all of these shenanigans? This is the point she was making here. And also, I mean, in the next hour, you will tell us what you think, so I hope you're taking notes. And welcome to those of you on Facebook and YouTube as usual, and on 995.5 FM. We're going through CJ's life step by step, so that from the conversation we had last week, we felt it was important, again, especially when the list of drugs and opportunities have grown. Now, remember when people go to university as well, it depends on where they come from. If it's one thing that some people will come up with the idea, which is to sell drugs, have every drug available. That's how they will make their money.
Yes.
To carry them to university.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
That does happen.
Yeah.
You can get whatever drug you want. You just have to know who to ask.
Right. So, and that will be that person's money-making venture while they're in university, where some people have to go work in a thrift shop or go in a casino or whatever.
Yes.
There are people who are planning to be drug traffickers while studying.
Yes. And they are usually the ones who do well, They'll graduate. And they'll graduate and not face any consequences. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they're bright, right? And they know how to manipulate things. But at the same time, God, it is not is usually the person who either has problems at home, like CJ, or the person who has been sheltered, like I was, going into a new environment and getting caught up, who will end up dancing on the table or end up doing things that they're really not supposed to do because they are away from home, they're out in another country, and and also the issue of finances while you're at university. It is very an expensive endeavor. So it is
inexpensive?
An expensive endeavor. Most people, would take out loans to attend university, and in some instances, the family has the resources to send their child through university, without having to take a loan. But
and we'll send them money every month.
Exactly.
Right.
But those who don't have that luxury, how do they make money? If you can't get a job, how are you making money? How are you eating?
There are reports of university students having sugar daddies.
Absolutely.
To help them through their time.
Yes.
Which one are you? Which one will be your child be? This has so many layers. And we're not trying to scare anyone, we're just preparing you. The guys who selling their drugs in university, that is not our issue. It's the casualties that will come about from, because I can tell you, or we have an image to show you of what predisposition is all about, because then, let's say your child comes from a family of 4 or 5, and that's the only one in the family who goes left. Why? Because in some cases, some people are predisposed, and whether it's mental ill health, alcoholism, drug addicts, drug addiction, there are some people, even gambling and other issues. That predisposition image will explain it for you in great detail. So we'll do that too before we go. So let's go to university balance now. Could you explain?
So this is basically talking about the balancing work and study. The question you posed to CJ is, how is it possible to balance work and study? So here is CJ's response. Were there any services provided by the university itself in terms of providing information to students about alcohol abuse and other things?
A lot, but it depends if your mindset is, I don't have an issue, I'm just having fun, which is what it's painted out to be, you're not really going to go and seek out those services. So there's a lot like there on offer. There's even the student radio, which often has programs about this, and you can call in at night if you're distressed, and so there's a really supportive environment. It just depends where you end up and what choices you make from that day one, and whether you're open to getting that help if you do need it.
So you had a radio station on campus, where people would call if they had, well, of course, the normal run-of-the-mill radio, but they have times where you can call. Tell us about
There's
it.
like I think it was called like a night line or something, and you could call in anonymously like during the night and just see if they had an issue. Sort of like when I think of prisons, like the Samaritans and the listeners, but on a more vocal way. So you could tune in and hear that other students are having issues. No matter what it was, I'm feeling lonely, I'm not making my lectures, I don't know, I feel picked on, whatever. It could be anything, it doesn't have to be related to drugs or alcohol. Drugs and alcohol, people tend to tell their friends. I think maybe they might have issues rather than going to the right services. I think because there's still a stigma around that when there shouldn't be, really.
Do you have any ideas on how we can reach young people at that stage?
I would just say, as much as possible, just do things in moderation. Like, you don't have to stick out and be like, no, I'm not going to go out tonight. But just say, actually, I'm going to go out, but what else do I want to do tomorrow? Okay, I'll set a goal. I'll be back by 11, or, I only have one drink. Just really check with yourself, like, what do you want? Are you going out because the person you're sharing a room with was like, please come, I can't go to this party with nobody else? Like, really look into the reasons why you're doing something. And maybe just check that, say like, what would my mom think if she knew, or what would my sister think if she knew, or what would my teacher think if he knew. Just check it against other people and try and listen to that. And I suppose don't be in a rush to make loads of friends as well, because that can be the trap if you're feeling isolated, which everyone does when they come to uni because they don't know anyone. Not many people know people. Just really have the confidence in yourself to think, I will make good friends and it will take time and it doesn't need to happen today. And just focus on the first few weeks on attending your lectures, making that the priority. And if you can still go out at night, if you can still partake in everything else, do it. But just make sure that you still check in and you don't let things slide, because some people will be like, it's fine, we don't need to go to that lecture. It's fine, we don't need to go to that because, it's we can just read the notes online. But just think, like, why are you paying all this money and why have they put this up if it's not really something you have to attend? And don't get like,
Caught up.
Yeah, with what everyone is saying.
Because as you said, there are those who stood up and said no.
Absolutely.
And they were isolated.
Yeah.
But they did well.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the benefit of hindsight is amazing. So, I know a lot of people who just didn't really go out. Maybe they had the occasional drink at the pub on a Friday night throughout their 3 years or 4 years at uni, but they wouldn't be going out during the week. They wouldn't be going to sort of raves which lasted all night long, because that just knocks out your whole weekend. And they were the people who did extremely well, who are working in banks and law firms at the moment and earning like millions, and they can now do whatever they want, having not wasted those 3 or 4 years. And I think sometimes it's tough, like if you're really young and maybe you're not mature enough to go to uni, like take a year out, do some work, collect some money, like where you are, and then make that decision to go later when you're less likely to be caught up with just making friends. And also know that you don't have to just do that. You can do both, but just make sure you're really aware of who you are and what you want. Because I have friends as well who did both, who went out but also knew when to say enough is enough, and to just really knuckle down and study so that they did the best they could in every area and did themselves proud.
Yep, that is a very difficult thing to do as a young person, 18, 19, 20, 21. These are, prime ages for just letting loose and experiencing the world. But again, it comes back to the foundation that you've set and the reasons why you are attending university and how you're able to achieve that balance of having fun, meeting new people, being social, and enjoying your youth with your academics at university.
Is there a point in time in university where one would probably lock themselves in the dorm, in the room, and question what the hell I'm doing here, because they're not fitting in?
Maybe.
Or
like
being
when you get that
bullied?
first D on a paper, or you're in a lecture hall and the professor points you out, or when something academic makes you think, well, am I really supposed to be here? that will make you that might make you sit down and question, your reasons for being there.
And I guess she spoke about having a 24-hour hotline in the university where when you reach to that stage, when one reaches to that stage, they can actually, because remember the pressure is on the student to please their parent and achieve and qualify themselves for something that they want to do.
Yes.
And maybe they sometimes probably want to give up but don't want to because of their parents and how disappointed their parents would be. And I think it would be all of those issues. But for first time now, let's go back to that first time. See that, and this is where the turn to a crutch comes in to cope. And if your child has poor coping skills, then that drink that they took that freshers night or the drug that made them feel relaxed, or somebody will suggest, you're too tense,
You need
maybe
to loosen up.
go to that block and ask for so and so, and you will get something, and next thing you know, you now become dependent on that substance to go through the university.
Yes.
Rigors.
That happens. I had an experience not kind of similar to that. It was Christmas break, and of course I didn't have money to come back home, so I was on hall. I lived on hall. The hall was basically empty except for a few people. I also had chicken pox, so I was there alone, got myself some marijuana to smoke, and had the worst trip ever. I think that kind of swore me off of marijuana. Because you know what it is to be just sitting down on the square by myself smoking. And, my mind is just going, I could have sworn I was going to, climb the top of the G block and jump off. All kind of things ran through my head. It was the worst. Thankfully for me, I kind of, when I caught myself and sobered up, I realized this is not helpful, right? But at the time I was at university, there were not the services that are available that CJ spoke about. There was a radio station. I was actually working at the radio station, but nobody on campus listened to that station. It was really for students. There was no hotline for me to call to say, I'm here on my own and I need something to do or somebody to talk to. There was nobody that I could reach out to talk about what I was going through, be feeling isolated and not well, having chicken pox and just, being away from home.
So would you all suggest, so in UWI here, Tamika has joined us, is there a phone line, a 24-hour hotline that people can reach? Okay.
It's my email that I'm checking right now because normally they send you things that are happening on campus, things that you could reach out to. So let me just dig up in my email and then I'll tell you guys.
Right, because it'd be nice to know that there's a 24-hour hotline, because having a 24, no, I know that's a stretch, right?
Yeah.
But who you will get a man that? Do students volunteer for that?
Perhaps they would, yes.
Or that's an NGO that would do that?
Well, I know most universities have a student services or either the Guild of Students or they would the Guild of Students, or the university itself will have a department for student services. So anything that students need, whether it's financial aid, whether it's any kind of social services or information about things that are happening in the world and things that they're exposed to, the university usually does provide that. But yes, there would be students who volunteer to assist with those helplines and those, activities.
That's a very delicate thing, because to work 24 hours, do they sleep and the phone wake them up, or they stay manning the phone?
So the UWI Guild offers the counseling and psychological service department.
Right.
So there is one. There is also a financial advisory service department. Student accommodation office, student activities, facilities and computing students department, student life and development department. So the Guild has careers, co-curricular and community engagement departments. And so these are the services that the University of the West Indies Guild Department offers.
But especially for someone who starts a trip, let's say 2-3 in the morning. When I say trip, I mean start to question themselves and go into depression. And is there that phone that they can
No,
that number
so
they can pick
it
up?
opens Monday through Fridays,
8 to 4.
8:30 to 4:30 p.m. The last appointment is at 4 p.m.
Yeah, and that's not enough though. But it's a start. And if you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency, and we are we're having a conversation this morning that we hope will help you understand what university life is all about and the challenges. And CJ, in this case, was trafficked. And she ended up in Japan, 6 months pregnant, because she got herself into debt, and instead of telling her parents, she chose to accept an offer from an individual who trafficked her. So we're going to go to a break, and then we come back with part 4, this time university and work. I guess that's what she's discussing here, how she did that. And we'll go into that predisposition discussion with you, and what is in some cases inevitable to happen. Granted, guaranteed people, the science is there that if my great-grandfather or grandfather had mental health issues, that would be passed on from generation to generation. It's something we don't discuss in some households. It's taboo to even say your father was in the madhouse. That's what we will say it here, right?
Always in St. Anne's.
Right. But if you have 2 children, 3 children, one of them will be all will be carriers, but one will be the affected one.
And obviously will be exacerbated by the physical environment that they're in and what the kinds of abuse otherwise that they're exposed to. Yeah?
Yes. So, but then some will say, so then should I be my daughter or son's friend so that if something happened, they still can't trust when they come to me, I wouldn't ridicule them and shame them, and I would listen to them, and just like I would listen to a friend. And because, a friend telling you something that they did and your daughter telling you the same thing could have 2 different responses.
Yes.
So let's go to that break, and when we return, we'll deal with that university and work, and we'll delve into it further. We'll be back.
Slavery, a terrible time in our history. The kidnapping, buying and selling of people for profit, the exploitation of another human being. It still exists today. It has a new name: human trafficking. Anyone can be a victim. There is forced labor, sexual exploitation, and domestic servitude. Human trafficking is a worldwide problem and an emerging concern for us here in Trinidad and Tobago. If you know of or suspect human trafficking activity, call the counter-trafficking hotline at 800-4CTU or 800-4288. Human trafficking is a crime. Identify it, report it, stop it. A message from the counter-trafficking unit of the Ministry of National Security.
50 by 20, 50 by 25.
This is Kyron Pollard. When you play, do it the legal way. Don't bet on illegal gaming.
Hi, I'm Kathy, and I'm an active alumni and volunteer at the Toronto Drug Treatment Court. You're listening to Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha, Trinidad and Tobago. Drug Treatment Court's work.
Thank you for staying with us. This is Eye on Dependency. Welcome back. We're extending our conversation about CJ's story, which we shared with you last week, and we're delving into her home life, some of the indicators for where she ended up, right? Her home life, her university career, and some of the challenges that young people experience as they're going through that tertiary educational institution, whether it is at home or abroad. And And the next, and we see your comments on Facebook. We're looking them over. Thank you very much for those of you who join us on Facebook and on YouTube. Remember to like the live when you do jump in. Pearl says, so there is help. Yes, Pearl, there is help. The problem is, even before secondary school, children must know how to prioritize their time. Absolutely. There must be time for playing, reading, doing chores, and studying. Parents must not wait until children are ready to leave home to begin to get them independent. And that is absolutely correct. I cannot attest to that because I was not prepared to live on my own when I left home to go to university. I had to learn how to cook, and clean, and wash, and everything. and at least there were the Jamaican students who were on hall, some of them. At least, I could learn a little bit from those people. But I was completely unprepared to live on my own. Completely. And unfortunately, for me, fortunately, I should say, it was a learning experience. But not everybody gets out of there unscathed, as we heard from CJ.
All right, so let's go to university and work.
Yes, the challenge of working while at university. I know that when I was at UWI Mona, there were not many opportunities for people to work. There were internships, of course, aligned with your degree or your topic of study, but there were not many opportunities to work. So you basically were dependent on whatever student loan and or your parents to live. But in other jurisdictions, there are opportunities to work, and CJ now talks about how you can balance the two and what kinds of jobs to choose.
A lot of students in university find themselves in this position.
Yeah.
How do you balance studying and working? How is that possible?
I think it is definitely possible if you find the right job and you make sure that the job works for you, the people aren't trying to use you. I think the casino was the wrong place for me because they just want you to make money, and even the rules of working there, the soft rules were like you had to wear a top that was low cut, you had to encourage the punters to spend money, whatever that took. You have to talk to them, you have to do things that maybe, I think in this society is bordering on illegal, but they were just part of, and you got to keep, it was a good place to work because you got to keep your tips, and if you made certain, the more you were with somebody, the more tips you would get, so it was seen as a good thing to do in the student circle. But you couldn't really then go to bed at 4 or 5 in the morning and then get up for a lecture at 9 o'clock in the morning, so it wasn't the right choice. And so I'd say make the right choice. So whether it's a weekend job or just doing a couple hours in a shop, and making sure that when you agree to do it, don't just think of yourself as, oh, I'm a student, I need money. Think of it like, actually, I've got this job, I'm doing something for my employer. What am I getting back? Just as we would do now in the working world, we would make sure that we have benefits of working in that role, and then they should be flexible. And if it's not a job like that, like some of my friends worked in pizza shops or were a waitress, where they could say, I've got exams, can I have this week off? Or I've actually got a holiday, can I work extra time? And it was a better relationship with their workplace.
How prevalent is this with students in university?
The student fees are going up and up for university, so I can only imagine it's much more now than in the time I went to university. A lot of people I knew had jobs. Obviously, depends on the university you go to. Some universities, the people come from very privileged backgrounds, and therefore they're more likely not to. But in the majority, people do have to do some form of part-time work or holiday work even, and allow their studying time to be free of work, but then work throughout the holidays. So yeah, I don't think it's not uncommon.
And some employers know.
Absolutely.
And some of them take advantage.
Yeah, so in towns and cities where there are universities, they know that there's a high student population, and sometimes it's actually really hard to get jobs. So when I was a student, it was actually very hard because there were so many students looking for work. That's what really led me to go towards the casino. And I suppose that's the danger, is that the easier jobs to get will be the ones you probably shouldn't be going for. So, the jobs that would be the best would be the ones on campus, running the shops and the food. But there are only so many jobs, and a lot of students who need extra money, especially people coming from abroad and studying in the UK, they were the majority of people who were getting jobs because they came from places where they had, they were less privileged. So I think you just have to be really mindful that there obviously are going to be some places of work that.
All right, so apologies for that cut off. Some places of work that are better than others, I think she went on to say, essentially. But yeah, it is a challenge to have to work while you're at university. I mean, some people can, strike that balance. But again, are young people prepared for the world of work? Because that's another environment that you're going into that you may be exploited. CJ chose to work in a casino, which was clearly, a dangerous precedent to set. But even in other contexts, you may face a kind of exploitation that you would face, in society, where the employer does not give you time off, does not pay you fairly, expects you to be, on the job at certain hours. And that's another challenge that students will face if they have to get a job to make extra money to live.
And a casino is one of the places that easy is, it's almost like hunting in the zoo. Because these traffickers know that vulnerable women seek these jobs. And they have to flirt, and they have to look nice and smell nice, and treat the guests extra special, and that way, from the time you get $100 tip, £100 tip, or $100 US tip, $50 US tip, that's big. That's how they rope people in. And would your child be able to resist that if they decide to work in a casino? Because they might have one friend already working in a casino, and
they say, girl, I'll make you tips,
Yeah.
It's long hours, but, the money real good.
And then they go. And the friend now might be able to, because of experience, be able to handle it, but then the one he invite could get chewed up within weeks.
Absolutely.
So which one is your child? Like I said, those of you who can, do you have the means to log on and see what the predisposition chart looks like? That will work for you, just for that, so we could explain it to you what it is. You don't know if you have a child in that situation. You could figure it out. We'll help you with that. And of course, we have the counter trafficking unit, as we said, have been working diligently behind the scenes. And in the next hour, we'll take your calls on this discussion here, which some of you have in the discussion on Facebook and YouTube. If you're just joining us, thank you very much. But Natasha will share that. You want to say the counter trafficking? Oh, let's go to the image. Let's share the counter trafficking unit news with you, so you could hear what they have been up to. Those of you who missed it,
right? The
unit is working for you.
Sure. So a fourth suspect has been apprehended in an ongoing human trafficking investigation. In a continued effort to dismantle a human trafficking ring, the Ministry of National Security's counter-trafficking unit successfully apprehended a fourth suspect connected to the same victims of trafficking rescued on the 1st of September. On the 2nd of October, the CTU, in collaboration with the TTPS and the Immigration Division, executed a trafficking in persons search warrant at Ponderosa Bar and Lounge, located on Lambie Street, Vista Bella. During the operation, several items of evidential value were obtained, and one male suspect, a Trinidad and Tobago national, was arrested. This operation reinforces the CTU's mandate to protect vulnerable individuals and increase prosecutions of those involved in human trafficking. And again, as a reminder, the public is encouraged to report any suspicious activities related to human trafficking by calling the CTU hotline 800-4CTU. Together, we can make a difference in the fight against human trafficking.
But there's more.
There's more. As I said before, the 1st of September, the ministry's CTU, in collaboration with the TTPS, held a joint operation at Foreplay Bar on Bertrand Street, San Fernando. During the operation, 2 Venezuelan women were rescued following reports made to authorities. Following the rescue, legal advice was sought from Acting Director of Public Prosecution Sabrina Dugdeen Jaglal. As a result, Kemar Moffat, a Jamaican male, Daniel Alejandro Jimenez Cedeno, a Venezuelan male, Doriani Beatriz de Vera Martinez, a Venezuelan female, were formally charged with human trafficking offenses. All 3 individuals have been denied bail. The investigation was led by Authorized Officer WPC Jana Scott, supervised by Authorized Officer Acting Sergeant Videsh Ramsaran, and overseen by Authorized Officer Head of Investigations Sergeant Marlon Bishop. The operation was supported by the CTO Directorate and highlights the ongoing efforts of the CTO to combat human trafficking and protect vulnerable individuals. Again, to report suspected human trafficking, call the CTU hotline at 800 CTU.
And for those of you who don't know, the Director of the Counter Trafficking Unit is Mr. Alan Miguel, and Deputy Director Dane Marie Marshall. For those of you who don't know that of the change, well, now you know, and they don't rest. That is, I could tell you that for sure. And there are 16 days of activism coming up against gender-based violence that you will see. They will come to the front again and then go back in the background and continue their work as they are doing right now. So congratulations to the Counter Trafficking Unit, the TTPS, and all other agencies coming together to do their work. And you would hear the names of the people who were called here. And so it's obvious people selling their own, and not to pronounce too much on it, but we could deduce that because it's sad that, and this is the reality of the world today, people. There are people out there, their job is to entice, coerce, trick, con people into giving away their lives, either to traffic drugs or to sell them or whatever. There are people who choose to do that. Who knows why? We will never be able to know. But they normally are casualties, or they're always casualties from these institutions, from these situations, and who's going to take care of them? Because I can tell you for sure there are people who are rescued from trafficking or being trafficked who are addicted to substance or substances. And in some cases, if they're not monitored and treated properly, they will jump the fence and go right back to the trafficker. Despite all the pain and hardship of being trafficked, it's just so that they could get that drug. That's how strong these drugs are. And, I hope, the only sad thing is that we're not paying attention and not releasing the information, to the public. Fentanyl is making a mass in America right now. Fentanyl reach here yet? Do you all know? I'm sure it has, because ketamine,
yes,
the date rape drug. And when the information on Diddy parties start coming out, you all will hear about these drugs. Well, now you will know, and you're listening to us for 24 years.
Yes.
It's only when Diddy information starts coming out, then you all will believe, right?
Oh, shucks, is really that he used?
Yeah.
It's really that.
GHB, Viagra, LSD, ketamine.
So when these things are, when they discover these drugs in Trinidad, why is there not such an uproar? Why do you think that is?
Well, the statistics are not being released, so the public don't know.
Okay.
The public don't know really. It's only what make the news we will know. Like the doctor who was held with mushrooms, ketamine, ecstasy. You boy, listen. and
we forget about that.
Fix
Anywho.
it, Jesus. Fix it, Jesus.
Fix it,
So man, put up that image, please, predisposition, so that, and then we could take your calls after and tell us what you do, especially the two. You didn't find the clip from the two callers last week, the lady and the guy who called right after her.
The edited clips, yeah.
To contradict what we did in the promo.
Yeah.
Tamika, could you stand by our promo for me, please, so that. Right, so it's on the screen now, but I'm not seeing it. So you would have to put it up here. So what we have now is is an example of predisposition, right, folks? And for those of you who are looking on, so we have a picture of mother and father and 4 children. So we're talking about the gene, and remember there's a term that I use, that recruit training cannot change DNA. Well, this is it here. So the father is a carrier, the mother is a carrier. But you have an unaffected child, you have a child who's a carrier, and then there's the affected child. The affected child, of course, is the one in orange. But the others are carrying, so which means they could carry it on to their generation when they get married and make children. Correct. And have children, sorry.
And of course the affected child will also be a carrier.
Right. So is that your child? Because whatever it is was passed on, whether it's mental ill health, alcoholism, substance abuse, whatever it is was passed on, you have an affected child within your 4 children. So there'll be a child who is unaffected, but then the other 3 will have the chromosome.
And either of those carrier children could also, because, again, as I mentioned earlier, because of the environment or what they're exposed to, may develop an addiction or a problem growing up. And, of course, the affected child is most at risk, but the carrier children are the ones who will, even if they don't develop the addiction themselves, they will pass it on to their children.
Yep.
Yeah?
This is
continuing the cycle.
This is very important information, people. And like I said, and the analogy that I used earlier about people going through the protective service, how come some of them can do it and retire without a blemish, and then there are those who get in trouble every Monday morning, they're in front of the sergeant major for something, in front of their divisional commander, or name popping up here and there and all kind of stuff. Because recruit training cannot change DNA and predisposition. Understand that.
And then there's no there's no screening for people entering protective services. Do we really know why people want to be a police officer or
what do you mean in that sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
How do we know if they're not seeking the same kind of work or same kind of validation and or power and authority over people that they were missing in their own lives?
And folks, this Sunday I was planning to spend it talking about me because my birthday was 2 days ago.
A whole 64.
Nobody asking me,
They want to know. They want to know.
Yeah, that's on a lighter side of things. But we felt this was more important. I have the time to speak about my journey and what I've experienced and what I continue to experience. But I would not let that get in the way of us trying to educate you and empower you. So this is my gift to you. This is our gift to you about preparing your child for university. And should we be our child's friend? Should we be that person who will say, look, could you play the promo? Listen what was said in the promo by the 2 callers.
Yes.
It's up there.
6th of October.
Just in case.
6th. EUD promo 6th.
135. I-35. Right, so and continue to send your comments on Facebook. You could read out some of them in the meantime, Natasha. And we'll keep the screen up, short man, so that people can log on and see what we spoke about with the parents who are carriers, mother and father, and the child who will be affected.
Yes, again, Peril says that children must be taught how to manage money at an early stage. They must learn how to make a budget and stick to it. They must also learn what is more important at a particular point in time. A job might give you extra money, but you're earning extra money at the expense of your studies. And again, I guess being taught to manage money is a little different than actually having to manage money as a young adult. The whole concept of money and financial literacy is not taught in schools, because people in at least in the Western world, when you go to school, you learn how to be a good worker, right? You don't necessarily learn to think critically, but that's another conversation. So people's relationship with money and work is often skewed. But yes, Abigail says, good morning, Garth and Natasha. This is very serious. I hope Trinidad and Tobago is paying close attention to this and not think it can happen to your children or relatives. Have a wonderful day and stay safe. You too.
I hope so. I really hope so.
Yeah, it can absolutely happen to any one of us, because I don't think CJ, she kind of grew up in a privileged situation, or she did have to take a loan to go to university, but her parents were well enough off that if she had gone to them and asked for help, they would have helped her. Because when she got in trouble and ended up in prison,
she reached to them.
She had to reach out to them, and the mother had to fly to Japan, pay the fine that she had, take custody of her child and bring her back and raise her.
Now, you as our grandmother or mother, you're not involved in all of this,
Mm-hmm.
But it's when the police call you, is then know you got to find £47,000 to go and rescue your child.
Mm-hmm.
While she's 6 months pregnant, she had to make the baby in prison in Japan.
Yep.
Come on, let's start the conversation now.
Yeah.
So that you wouldn't, and let your child know, no matter what it is, please call me first. Because CJ was just £2,000 in debt. It cost her $47,000 in the back.
Mr. God, let me jump in here. We have Caribbean parents who tell you anything to do with prison and police station,
Don't call me.
Don't call me.
Don't drop the
soap.
My mother, it's my money. It's not for police station and for lawyer. And I keep saying, right, there's this word culture that we don't like to talk about it in depth, but the culture of us as Caribbean-based parents, we think a little differently in comparison to other cultures. So our children
very
are
much based
automatically programmed to know, you see, when something happens, and not calling mommy.
Let
me see if I have a friend who I
shame the
could call.
family.
Yeah.
You can't shame the family and let your mother know that you're in jail, or your people put their hands on you, or what? No, because again, growing up, you used to get licks, right?
It has been embedded in our DNA.
Absolutely. So you're not gonna tell your mother you did something wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not gonna tell your mother you're in trouble because you're either bound for some physical violence meted out against you, or other violence, which would be being cut off or being ignored, or saying
And
friends
this is
just
why-
take you on and don't carry you and all of these kind of things.
But this is why our children gravitate to their friends
Yes.
who, just as clueless as they are, when things tend to go haywire.
Yes. But I mean, what God is saying about, do you need to be a child's friend?
I
In
think
a
it's a good
sense,
balance.
yes.
It's
Yes.
a
You have to be able to have a friendly relationship that your child trusts you
It's a balance.
with that information, right? So, I mean, being a friend is one thing, and telling a child, I'm not one of your little friends.
The famous line.
The famous line is two different things.
And then, as Mr. God said earlier on, most of the children I interacted with in university who were given the opportunity to leave home with the children, when you hear their stories, it's like, my mother don't make me go here. I couldn't do this. While all my friends were going to
With X
bazaars
and
and
Y
these
and
things, I had to stay inside.
Witness.
And I was like, wait, so the more cage you keep them, when they get that opportunity to be released into the world, it's like, hey, I am trying everything that I couldn't try before.
So for the person who asks,
Literally.
Yes, it is. It is.
So for before I was trying to get the answer question here. So the CFTR cells and cystic fibrosis transmembrane conductance regulator. Big thing. That's
Wow.
medical stuff. But it's actually protein which helps to maintain the balance of salt and water on many surfaces in the body, such as the surface of the lung. But the person was asking that in relation to the graphic that we showed about predisposition and how easy the gene can be passed on from one generation to the next.
Yeah.
And if you have mental ill health in your family and you know that, do not hesitate to sit your children down and let them know, listen, you are different from those out there. Your mother, my father, my grandfather, they had mental health issues. Now, we don't know if you're affected. If you try marijuana or whatever for the first time, you can experience psychotic episodes and we will never be able to get you back. Depends on how severe it is. You need to have that discussion with your children, people.
Yep.
Tamika is saying, no, what do you think? There are parents who wouldn't do that?
Again, is the word culture. So, having conversations about mental health, that is something that you can't, I don't want to say you can't find, you rarely find it in our Caribbean homes. Because we're talking about you're depressed, we're talking about you have anxiety. Famous line.
Yes.
I had so much more things to deal with when I was your age, and look at me now. This is how serious this is.
Yes.
And then what we forget is that when children cross the waters and go to the UK and the US, where mental health is, it's a discussion, it's a reality. And then, hey, you have anxiety, look, I take a tablet for this, you know. And then you hand the tablet over to this child who was brought up in a household for 17, 18 years where anxiety is not a thing, depression is not a thing, right? Panic attacks is not a thing. And this child is looking for a way to cope. And I have a friend who could just bring this little tablet right through for me. I start to feel relaxed. I start to feel like, okay, I could take on life now. And then a part of the story, parents tend to forget. Sometimes you realize that every time there's a break, your child doesn't want to come home. They have an excuse.
Yes.
Well, mommy, I got a job.
And they need more money.
Or daddy,
Yes.
So, and you're telling yourself, well, my child he or she is taking on the world.
Yes.
Mommy, no, I don't need to come home for Christmas. I don't need to come home for Easter. And then you're not asking yourself, hey,
I wonder what's happening.
what happening here?
Yeah, because you would see a significant change in your child.
Yes.
Just as some mothers who testify about MyLab program and even the regiment, they had a child who never made up their bed. But now, when the child come back home, now they're making sure their bed is made up, they're washing their wares. You will see that significant change. Now, if it changes for the worst, then the child wouldn't want the parent to see that side, that change.
Absolutely.
And
because you're basically becoming another person.
a new
you know,
person, right?
that your parent will not recognize when they see you again.
Right. So you leave with braids and you come back with a mohawk with
Correct.
two
Or with
more
locks.
strings.
Yes. Or tattoos.
Yes.
It's an experience.
Yeah.
It's an experience.
It is.
Let's take some calls. 6223937. Oh, you play the promo?
Let's
play.
go.
Yes. Listen to what the two callers had to say last week, just before we wrap.
This Sunday on episode 40 of Ion Dependency, reality radio at its best.
Last week, we shared CJ's incredible story, which started at home but got worse at university.
For people who have lower self-esteem, who maybe haven't had that affection, that love from home, and who want to please people, are more likely to say, actually, no, I'll put the work aside, I'll go out, to the point where it's too late.
That prompted some callers to chime in on how parents contribute to their child's university career.
Do not live your life through your children. You want to push them to do this and to do that. Let the children decide, support them.
Parents have a responsibility and must adopt the posturing of guidance. I'm not saying dictate to the children.
Join us this Sunday as we speak with you, the audience, about all the issues raised in our interview with CJ. Listen live from 10 a.m. on I-95.5 FM or watch live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page or YouTube channel. The Counter-Trafficking Unit, Ministry of National Security, brings you Eye on Dependency. We don't just share stories, we change lives.
Thank you for staying with us. I love this type of conversation because something can come out of it. And your neck of the woods, I hope you had that aha moment this morning. Let's hear what some of you have to say. 622-3937. You can reach us and tell us, are you preparing your child, or is your child prepared for university? How are they going to cope?
I think it's a deeper question than that. I think it's, are we preparing our children for life?
Well, I mean, university is life, right?
It is.
It's part of life. It's part of our journey.
Yeah, it is. It is, absolutely.
It is.
It's sort of like just like the primary to secondary school transition. It is a transition that young people are not.
But Natasha, it is
for.
in a space now where you have to manage your own time, you have to manage your own funds, you have to manage your own friends. I remember my first semester at Manhattan College. I was like, no,
I can't do this.
This is a lot.
It's a lot. It is a lot. It is. It's a culture shock. It's a everything shock. And again, depending on how you were raised, whether you were exposed to certain things, and depending on how you feel and understand yourself as a young person, which is not often a time where people, young people are generally, searching. They haven't really established their own identity yet.
Yeah.
And you go to university and you find it.
Good morning. I hope you all had enough time to think your answer. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Wonderful show. CJ is very brave and is teaching us. Is it CJ?
Yes.
Teaching us so much. Now, I am in my 60s and I have a grown daughter, so I don't have that task. I have a grandson, but I don't have that task yet of preparing anybody for college. But I could tell you, some things never change, and I totally agree with Tamika because it is a preparation for life. Saying this because when I was in college in Canada, art school, so a lot more liberal, my father had 4 children, we weren't rich, I was the last to be educated. When I went to art college, same thing, starry-eyed, wow, the snow, first time seeing snow, I'll try not to be too long. Bottom line is they were selling drugs in the school. I wouldn't call the school, it was a very good school. I was very honored to get in, but there were the little pockets selling the little, hashish, a little, nothing big like cocaine, but the weed and so on a Friday afternoon. You line up in a certain area and you get in. I had friends who would come to my apartment because we had no dorm. I couldn't live in a dorm because there was no dorm. So I had to room with somebody. I had the freedom then of having somewhere of my own. And one day I just woke up and said, you know what? My poor father busting his you-know-what to put me through school. Next thing you know, he got a call because you could smell it. They'd come and they'd smoke their pot. And the neighbors, it was a high-rise building. I said, you know what? You all want to smoke weed? Because I wasn't really interested. Like, is it Natasha? Like Natasha, I had a bad thing because what happened to me is I wanted to eat. So the poor Chinese takeaway man, one day they said, Marzio, pull him into the door to get the food like if he were ravenous. And that made me very embarrassed the next day because I didn't know. We were waiting on the food because it gets you. Some people don't eat. And I'm not ashamed to say this. I'm in my 60s and I have told many young people, I said, do not try anything, not even once, because I nearly killed that man. That man ran down the corridor of the apartment building, terrified to say that it meant that every time I smoked, I spent money that I didn't have because I didn't have any money. Art school is not like med school or economics or so that you buy 10 books at the beginning of the semester and you're good for 2 years. Every day you're buying watercolor paper, paint, brush. It was really a struggle for my father to educate me. I decided and I made a decision and I opened my mouth and I said, you all want to smoke? You have to find somewhere else to do it. I even had a friend, French mother, Trinidadian father, and the father is a well-known man. She would go into the darker side of Toronto on a tube on the subway to buy her drugs from a Jamaican little posse. And I said, my God, look at how, I said, you're such an intelligent, beautiful woman, and you're putting yourself at risk. Come with me. I said, come with you, you're mad or what? I said, this is one Trini, not getting locked up. in a foreign jail, because it would have killed my father. Because I mean, I'm in my 60s now, and I thought of him as old then, but he would have been heading for 70, had done what he was supposed to do as a parent, grew up in Charlotte Street, got a good job, married my mother, had us, and provided. But I saw myself I had two choices: continue to let them come to the apartment and smoke and drink and what, or stop that one time. So what I would say to young people: do not try. Do not even. It's good to be good. It's not good to be bad. We have to teach our children. I taught my daughter, and I will teach my grandson. It is cool to be good. Do not do, even if you're feeling bad. And we have mental illness in my family. We deal with it. We face it. Do not turn to drugs, because you know what? I don't like to spend money, and I find that's throwing away money. First of all. Secondly, as CJ can attest, and all the other people you have had on the show over the years, it can get you into terrible trouble. But you have to be strong enough. Even if you've come from, look, I was depressed some days because I had so much work to do. Cold, it's freezing outside. I accustomed to sun. Get off the train and people bawling good night. And when you look at your watch, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I remember calling my parents that day and saying, I'm coming home. And my mother said, I told you should have gone to Miami. And my father said, no, you wanted to go to that school, you're staying. 4:30 in the afternoon, good night. And my parents and my friends on their porch in the sun having a cup of tea. So it was hard, It was hard. But I made my mind up first year, the second semester in the first year, not to touch anything, any substance, because it would have changed my whole course. I'm a graphic designer. I qualified. It is very hard sometimes, especially in a foreign country. You don't know anybody. You have a funny accent. They used to call me Island Girl. They thought I was this exotic thing, but I wasn't. I was just struggling to find my way. And in an art school, let me tell you, different to university, because everybody is very free and radical and free thinking. So wonderful program. But I agree with Tabika, it's a life thing, because we get problems later in life. We have struggles later in life. Things may not work out, marriages, jobs and so on, and we might turn to drugs. Do not even think of it. Find somebody to talk to. But great show. Continue the good work.
Thank you very much, caller. 622-3937. So
and
that's
even more difficult for persons who come in from a home like CJ, whose mother was dependent on alcohol.
Yes.
That could have been her story as well.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so I just came in and tuned into the program. I missed out on the majority of it. But what I heard, I tuned in, was when one of the speakers made mention of the education, right? Prepare the child or children for life, not necessarily university. I totally agree. And let me say on what basis. Use this quote. Do not allow your schooling, meaning from kindergarten right up to tertiary, do not allow your schooling to interfere with your education. And this education, this higher education, is about life, not necessarily academics. Because some people go to school from small to right up, and the rest don't care about life. And the other people who never went to school, and they are so educated, so intelligent. I just thought I should train that in support of what the person said about preparing the children for life, not necessarily university. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you.
Well, I mean, yes, I know it's a preparation for life, of course. But we were just looking at that further step, that jump now to higher education, and
in the context of CJ's story.
In the context of CJ's story, and are we prepared for it, or are you prepared for it, or are we preparing our children for it? How do we, how do we strike that balance? That you send a very confident child out, because one caller said, it's cool to be good. But you see, I didn't know that when I started my educational pursuit. I felt that somebody was helping me out here, and he's a partner, and I had low self-esteem. I could have said no, because my career as a PT, I started off really well. So I didn't have any need to tote low self-esteem, but still I was always hard on myself, because when you grow up in an environment where what you do is always held up to scrutiny and it's always never good.
Yes.
And, you know, it's
or
a
just not
combination of those things.
acknowledged and not appreciated. I had a bit of that as well. I mean, I was heavily involved in sports, and neither of my parents, nobody in my family paid any attention to me. I could have been a national athlete in something, but that just wasn't their vision for me as an adult. So I didn't pursue. I mean, I pursued it, but on my own level. So I didn't have that kind of confidence in my ability to go on and pursue. And that's the kind of thing we're talking about. How are you instilling that confidence in your children to be the people that they are meant to be the best that they can be, really?
So that the drug situation could take a dent, at least. Let's be real, folks. There wouldn't be... let me put it this way. How to put it? We would not be able to stop the drug trade.
No.
Let me tell you all that. From jump, just like horse racing, that will be here with us for life. Okay? But there are casualties. And how do we prepare people to not be a casualty?
Yep.
And this is what we're talking about here.
Yeah, resilience.
Yes.
Resilience.
Those children fighting in secondary schools that we see.
It's because of an absence of something in their home. They're looking for attention or scrutiny. It could be one of the two. Because they're not getting it at home. This is the gap that I think people missing, that when children go out of the home and do certain things, it's because they're seeking attention of some kind that they're not getting at home. It's that simple.
6223937. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Flower, good morning. This is the original.
Good morning, good morning.
You know, it is good to be your child friend, But what the parents have to go through, and we have to remind them of, there is stages of friendship with a child. Where they're going, where they're coming from, what they're about. You know, there are many, many stages with plenty different youths. I just talk to plenty youths, you know. And the difference in the youth, as Flower say, the culture. And after the culture is the behavior. And after the behavior is where they're going. So it has many stages of friendship that we have to let people know, look for the stages, or maybe try to assist them how to find the stages. And that's why I have to say about the youth has to help them to be close to them.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Hinkson says his daughter is at university in Tampa, and every chance she gets, she's coming home 3 times a year. Even before she leaves to go back, she knows she's coming back home already as school closes. And he says, as a parent, his partner know her movements every minute. Kind of closeness that parents and children should have. Absolutely, for the entirety of her life, she entirely is I wouldn't say, I don't want to say bonded in a way that she trusts that her parents will do right by her. If she needs anything, she needs any help, she knows who to go to. And that is the kind of relationship that most people do not have, unfortunately, with their parents. And while everybody can't be the same, and parents have challenges just as well as children do, but we're hoping for
6223937. Good morning. Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Good program.
Morning.
I was listening to the caller who spoke about her experience as going into university. And I want to agree with her, because in the university, the peer pressure is stronger than primary school and secondary school.
Absolutely.
And if coming from a parent that, my father was alcoholic. And I could tell you, today I hate alcohol. I hate it with a passion. And when students or younger ones see their parents in alcohol, not all of them want to follow that direction. A lot of us want to change. We want to be different. We don't want the abusive home. We don't want the alcohol. Going through university part-time, there was a lot of things there. They want to change your religion. They want to teach you this, teach you that. I'm not talking about the teachers, I'm talking about the peer pressure. And the peer pressure there was very, very strong. You have to hold on. So I'm agreeing with the woman. Do not touch any of the drugs. Some of the university students want to free up, have parties and so on. That is when they bring the drugs to you. And sometimes you are studying some one of the disciplines and all of a sudden you forget everything because the drugs get to your mind. The drugs are harmful and it is in the schools. Also, I want the education unit to look at toilets. In the toilets is where bullying starts. Bullying is in the toilets. People need to police those toilets in primary and secondary school. Thank you.
You're welcome. 622-3937. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning, Pat, Natasha, and your girl.
Morning.
Yeah. I'll tell you this, right? You know, children come out good. Is if you see the parents now, always watch them and always make sure they do the right thing. Anytime they see they're doing something wrong, they correct them and they tell them don't do that or don't touch that or all them different things like that. They nurture the children properly. But however, it may have some way might come out and bad out, but very few out of that. You understand where I'm coming from? But when you are training your children, because have a lot of parents not training the children properly, making it, and them as the children coming out back. For instance, I know that lady where the daughter wouldn't curse in front of she wouldn't curse, you know? They won't curse in front, use upbeat language in front of children. And that's an important thing, you know. It have a lot of parents that do that, you know.
Yeah.
Upbeat language. It's in all ways, you see, people say about African this and Africa. It have good African parents. It have plenty positive ones. So when people always say about Africans children doing things as they with you, well, it might be the majority, but you see, it have good ones. It have good ones. You understand? I say that's a particular reason why, because you know, see the other race more stricter the thing as it's more positive, you know? Or it have a lot of African.
Yeah, all right, yes. But we're dealing with families here now, right? So let's leave the race out there. It don't matter because you know, this could happen to any family. Hello, good morning. Hello? All right, we have to try again. Janice, some parents feel licks is disciplining a child. For them, licks solves everything. Some of them on radio, some say, I get plenty licks as a child and it didn't kill me. You wouldn't know.
But you're damaged.
Yes.
You're damaged.
It is, because you have the same punitive behavior.
Correct.
It's just that you don't beat your colleagues or beat people who you associated with, you know, but you have ways of getting back at them.
You associate discipline with violence, and that is not the way.
And if you have
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Natasha. Good morning, God.
Morning.
Happy belated birthday, Javon here. Good morning to the young lady with you all. Fantastic show this morning. I kind of middling on part of the conversation because I'm a parent and I have a 24-year-old, and I think there's some caution between being a parent and being a friend and drawing the lines.
Right.
Because I understand that you want to have open conversation with your kids. I understand that you want them to feel comfortable to come to you with anything.
Right.
But a parent can't do that. And a friend, by what is Webster's definition or not, is a peer. And the kind of reverence and the kind of authority, respect, etc., I really think parenting is important. I really think that parenting is a key to unlock some of these challenges that we're discussing, not taking away from all the support systems that exist and making people understand that there's nothing wrong with support, because as West Indian people, we have a particular kind of ideology towards professional support. There's a stigma attached to it, and that's something that we have to get over. And I hope that generation after generation, we kind of whittle it down a little bit so that the next generation after us comfortable with getting professional support. But I'm really great show and continue to do the good work. And the program is part of the arsenal, the program, being able to have discussions about these things, the people hearing, whether they are in university, whether they are parents who have children in university, is all part of the community that raises the children that we have. So keep up the good work. Great work, team.
Thank you very much, Javon.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks for calling.
That was an excellent point. Because while he was talking, I was wondering, growing up, sometimes your parents wouldn't preview you to their lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was do as I say, not as I do.
Yes, but you're still looking on and
right, because children are not what we tell them to be, but they tend to be what they see.
Yes.
So I'm wondering now, with this generation of parents that we have, myself included, where we come from a space of, instead of doing what mommy and daddy did, which was hide the worries, I am now in a place where I want to be open with my daughter. Mm-hmm. Like, listen, today, this is what happening. Today, this is how I feel. So I'm wondering if that is now going to develop them and us in a place where the communication, the honesty, the transparency is a lot more in comparison to what our parents gave to us.
Yeah.
That's important. No, that's a very important point.
Okay, from my point, my standpoint.
This is Boomer talking
my
here.
mother.
Boomer, Gen X.
Right.
Gen Z.
Yeah, no, so many generations.
My mother,
I like this.
My mother she's the one who felt that children should be seen and not heard.
Yes.
The first time I referee a basketball game in Monrepos, my brother almost went crazy because, my mother would have a cow, knowing that I put myself on the public get to be very cool and people going, referee, you're cheating, and that freaked my brother out. Now, she believed that you could beat discipline into a child.
Right.
She also believed that. But she, apart from being a disciplinarian, she never taught us to do wrong. She never encouraged us in wrong. This pen is not mine. I have to explain where I got it. And if I cannot, I would not be able to sit properly for a day or two. That was my mother. She religious. She was very spiritual. She went to every church in Trinidad and Tobago and encouraged me to do the same.
Right.
But look where I ended up. Mm-hmm. Because one part of it, she couldn't balance me and being
the individual.
That outgoing person. Mm-hmm. I wanted to play the African drum.
Yeah.
She almost got crazy when I brought home a drum. She was like, don't bring it in my house.
Yeah.
What are you doing with that here?
Yeah.
And no, she didn't want me to be me. And
identity.
So when I reached the military, it was, I didn't used to go back home. I slept in camp.
See?
Because I found that it was
pressure home. You're
suppressing yourself. Anything right.
Yeah.
But yet, when I train as a recruit now, Barbell, Mr. Morris, and my section commander, remember I said, is there I met my father and grandfather because they saw not the miserable side of me, but the talented side of me, the side that had potential. But yet, I ended up in prison. Try to use that, of
so that's one form of parenting. For me now, I grew up in a household where, as Gen X, we raised ourselves essentially. We saw our parents out and about in the world. Both of my parents were out and about living their lives. And we were left to fend for ourselves in a sense, taking pattern from them, an example from them, but learning to be self-sufficient in a sense. Because I'm the youngest of many siblings, I was sheltered and spoiled in a way that I never had to do anything for myself, which is why when I went off to university, it was a free-for-all. And I never even finished my degree as a result of that.
Well, I came from a father who was old school, where if there are 50 people in a room, you cannot say goodnight. You have to say goodnight to each and every single individual.
Serious?
Yes. You don't want to piss yellows off it. Gonna know them is not your friends. So you see, I still sit here and I say Mr. Gart and Miss Natasha. It's embedded in me.
What time I go to tell you stop calling them Mr. Gart?
No, I can't. Because as I come off, he'll call and say, Gart is your friend. Right? And then my mother was a mixture of both. So she was the one who, she still had her old school grounding, but she was open to see what new there is, because we know with times
Allow you
everything
to be you.
changed. Correct. However, within all of that, became very sheltered because everything was done for us. We had grandparents who
Doted
understood
on you.
the role of grandparents,
Yes,
which is we provide, we take care of, we shelter. I was going to college and I was getting
And
up to my
spoil.
breakfast being made. My grandfather made everything for me. It's when I got out into the US, I realized that the world is 10 times more than what I knew. So I had to adapt. I had friends who were working by the age of 15. My first job was at the age of 22. So think about it.
Yep.
6223937. If you're just joining us, something unusual is happening on our Dependency this morning. We do always have this time to chat.
Yeah.
You know, our show will always
Yeah, but
packed
this
with
is
information. But this information here and from the callers have been on point so far. Even Larry, you know, it's very but
Larry
no,
on
serious.
point.
Yeah, he was on point this morning,
Yeah,
and there are some people, and then there are some children who very good at being good at home. And then when they're not around their parents, they turn into something else.
Yes.
And this is why
Because they learn that, guys, because they know that there's a certain behavior that is acceptable at home, and outside of that, you're on your own.
Yeah.
So you still have to say, should we take what they say with a pinch of salt, and everything going good? Yes, daddy. Yes, mommy. I'm doing fine. But when they're at university, there's a different person.
But then
If you don't have the kind of relationship with your
That is
child to have the communication,
That is it.
and
What you didn't
extract from them.
What you did, Ramjit Singh said, 6223937. Hello,
Go
good
ahead.
morning. And I have a question
lost
to
that
ask
one.
before you wrap up.
Go ahead.
Hello, good morning. Hello?
Good morning to you, Natasha. Good morning to you, Sinclair.
Morning.
And Sister Castillo.
Morning, Mr. Keith.
They were saying, what I'm eating about you.
Yes.
And one size don't fit all. Because life is a learning process. Sometimes you explain things to your children, but they would want to experiment on their own. So it's a kind of each one teach one, because sometimes we make mistakes in life, right? But we have to understand that we are navigating our ship through troubled waters, and we must reach a safe port. So it's not a one size fit all, because this whole education, it has been bandied about where people feel it's only academics, but there's a balance in academics and life. So even so-called bright people could make mistakes, you know. But at the end of the day, according to God, you have to decide this nonsense has to stop now. Let me walk you on our road. Good program once more, but everything comes to individual responsibility. If something working out, stop it.
Thank you.
Good show once more.
For those of you who on YouTube, remember please to like the channel, please. On Facebook,
like
do the
the
same,
live.
please. Please, it helps to grow the channel, and we have plans for the future, so we want you to be part of it. So please like and subscribe to the channel. 6223937. Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Sinclair.
Morning.
Morning to Sunshine and Wifey.
Morning.
God, I wasn't on calling this morning. They said something. It's a very critical role a father plays in an adolescent male life. Right? A father that really loves his family. A critical role. And listen to your struggles with your mother. Right? And your surrogate, sometimes who becomes your surrogate? You're in but you're out. You know, Bridget was talking about that. If you understand what's coming from the gut, he's a man from the street. You're in but you're out.
Yeah.
Because they are the family and the children. So you're never really in. Right? And that is where your father and my father, the role that they're obligated to play. Because it's an education, that you will make, because sometimes your success and failure, God, has a lot to do with that father figure and that presence. To pull you back when he needs to pull you back. Because you have to make your mistakes, you know. But it mustn't be fatal or it mustn't be critical where you can't recover, or it will take very long for you to recover. And that is where father comes in. So as me and older brother was talking, when I really go back into my past, right, and your surrogates on them, who came in who you gravitated to, Natasha. You was in. You was in, but you was out. So you was never really in. And you can't vex with them. Because your father obligated their responsibility. So I just calling us to say that, God, I'm listening to you. And this program, through the years, God, is very, very educational and informative because of your realness and Natasha education. So when I really check it out, God, I was in, but I was out sunshine. I was never really in. So morning again.
All right. Now, let me ask you this. Street sense. You need to have street sense.
Plenty.
How do you get your child's street sense
without exposing them?
Without exposing them, but you must get driven. I don't know if you ever thought of that, if you ever had that conversation with your child or the callers who called you this morning. But how, okay, for instance, if I want to buy a car or sell a car, and somebody tell me meet them on the corner of Prince and George Street, I'm not going.
Correct.
Right.
And do you have to have street sense or common sense?
Both.
Because I see people still to this day.
Both.
You know, this guy went with how many $1,000 US in jewelry, scrap jewelry, and US on him, and he went to meet somebody in Lavantil. And no, what you need for that? Street sense or common sense?
I think both.
Exactly. So how do you balance that?
And I it's not. I don't think we could reach the balancing first until we learn to develop street sense. So mine was taught through my father. And that's what he just said. The role of a father is crucial. So my father is streets. So you learn that by being there with him all the time. So you're outside, you're hearing things pass in your ears. You're also hearing him uttering certain things, and you start to put two and two together. Mommy is book sense. He was street sense.
Right.
So I learned to strike the balance between both of them.
You must have that.
But now the next question we have to ask now, if the child is being raised by one parent.
Correct.
And that one parent only knows either book sense or common sense, how does the child then develop either of the two or both of them together?
Because the one parent often cannot provide both. Because in my situation, it's reversed. My father was the book sense and my mother is the street sense. But for those children too whose parents, one of their parents or both of their parents is using a substance, how does that impact on their street sense and their book sense if they are heading in that direction in terms of academic study? But how does that impact on their street sense and their sense of identity, as in who am I in relation to my parent who really cannot parent because they are using a substance? Who am I in relation to other people who probably know my mother's an alcoholic, but and will see me a certain way or treat me a certain way because of that?
Sarah, yes, you're looking for love with the wrong place. No, let me throw in this before you wrap up. Let me throw in this.
Yeah.
What's the right age to get married? That's another. You see, because we talk about children making children, and children cannot teach children the ways that because we really have children. I see. You have to be a child to be holding the next child and run and walk over with them. I see that in Cocorita all the time. They walk over this mother's head, but she rather lift her child over 3 barriers and risk being run over rather than use the walkover. Like some of the mothers we have floating around today, right? What's the right age to get married really? Because isn't it tricky to get married at the age of 20, but then be looking at childbearing years? Maybe that's a discussion we could have another time when we have more time. Because I decided I was not going to get married until I was 50. That's when I proposed to Natasha.
What?
Natasha laughed.
I know, hear this. Because my intent was not to get married at all.
I planned it Father Stout. It was in Hoover. I come in there early as night. I come in there propose to Natasha.
Oh, shucks.
And so he was in part of the
He was in it. So you get tricked, Natasha. You get tricked.
So Father Stout was an accomplice. But the thing is, for me, I felt that getting married at the age 50 was the best time to do it. Why? Because I feel at that age,
you learn, you live, you experience.
And I shouldn't be running the route. Again.
Yeah.
That time to book so close and concentrate on a marriage or relationship.
Yes.
And this is the product here of that.
But
that
then
choice.
We have to remember children who are brought up in religious structured households, making children out of a marriage, you will put shame on the family.
Absolutely.
So even if I don't want to get married, but I want to have children, I now have to subject myself to this regime.
Yes.
Because I have to do it a particular way, because it's mommy, it's daddy, it's granny, it's grandpa, and these are the things that many persons are struggling with. And then we're not even looking at the fact that women are becoming more financially independent.
Correct.
So things that our mothers used to take,
yeah,
they wouldn't take. So you're probably telling yourself,
what's the best still? What's the best age to get
I would the answer is it depends on you.
It depends on, because the
answer is it
maybe
depends on
I didn't
you.
trust myself before 50, but I still felt that I should not be giving my wife no stress from 50 going up the road. This half a century talking
Natasha,
about here.
Mr. God
Come
giving you
on.
stress. Wink your eyes twice. Let me see. Wink those eyes twice. Let me see.
No, I wasn't going to do that. And my mother gave us that grounding, learn to cook, clean, wash, and do everything so that
I was correct when I said the answer to when is the right age to get married. It depends on you and your partner.
Yeah, because you get married at 19, 20, and every time I see that, I say,
That's problems.
I see because
Don't want
after
peace,
a
you
while,
want problems.
your friends who not married, no children, they're going out and party. You can't do that no longer. And now you have a different role to play as a 20, 21-year-old. I think that is too much of a pressure for a 21-year-old.
I agree. But that pressure, as Tamika was mentioning, that pressure comes from is external pressure, especially on women.
Yeah.
To get married before they have children, or to find a man, quote unquote. But from those of your generation who believe that a woman cannot be successful unless she has a male partner by her side. Right? That
Some of us, not
belief
all of us.
is still around.
Yeah.
Okay.
And prevalent.
And especially
or if it coming from the church.
Highly cut.
The
religion
religious aspect of it, that grooming that says that, women have a role and men have a role, and your role is baby maker and wife.
Oh, they're looking for them to call my program tomorrow
and finish
to continue.
Yes. Take one more call before you wrap up.
Yeah,
because it's. I think it's important to know that, so that don't walk into a marriage and
certainly not.
And feel you can still do the things that you're accustomed doing.
And don't
it
walk
shouldn't
into a
be like
marriage
that.
because your mother and father wanted to get married.
Right. So that way the children that you produce, we won't be talking about them now as victims of peer pressure and low self-esteem.
And of using drug abuse.
Using drugs and all of these
different
things.
Yeah.
Right. So, it was really nice to have this conversation. One of the rare occasions that we get to share the time
He
with
want
you.
to drag it until 12 o'clock so nobody can sing happy birthday for him. Say happy birthday to you.
Oh my God.
Sing happy birthday to you. Sing happy birthday. Sing happy birthday. Sing happy birthday to you.
One more time, let me go.
Daddy, young people want to say that. I feel it to sing. Mr. God,
thank you.
Everything that your heart and your mind desires, I really hope it's being placed onto you, and give you the strength and the energy and the knowledge to continue doing what you have been doing for all these years.
I need that. I take that in Jesus' name. Trust me, because it has not been easy.
I know.
But God
Remember,
is great.
to whom much is given, much is always required.
Yeah,
Yes.
but I will fight God next time with this one. You know what? I say again, I will never get over the fact that I wasn't able to complete a military career. Something that I love so much.
Everybody have regrets in this life, Mr.
Yeah,
God.
that is one of them for me.
Everybody will leave this
But,
life with some form of regret.
Marlon Paris, thank you very much. Good morning, guys. Natasha, what an informative program. I've always tuned in on the program. May God continue to bless you all. And Trini residing in Georgia. Hi, Georgia. Good morning to you out there in Georgia. And my sister Melina introduced me to Dependency a few years ago, and I don't miss your program. Well, thank you, and we hope we have been of service. And to all of you, thank you so much for joining us this morning. in this interesting discussion. You missed it from the start. You can go back to the page and
yes, you can.
And follow the discussion that we had here this morning. Very great contributions from all the, well, the lady and the gentleman who started the conversation.
There you go, lady.
I've been here from them this morning.
It's true.
But we hope you all having a good day. And Natasha, closing remarks?
Well, happy birthday again, Mr. God, 64. Don't forget.
That Mr. God stick with you from now on.
I just call him that too. But yes, many, many birthday blessings to you. And
yes,
so let's hope that in the coming year we will, as we head to 65, which is a monument, another monumental one that.
Well, a milestone for a lot of
yes,
65,
yeah.
25 years of independency.
Yes.
To the 5 years, out of prison.
Yes.
How many years of marriage?
14.
You'll be 14 in December.
Yeah.
In December, look at that.
Yeah, but we knew each other longer than that, almost 30 years. And that's the next thing.
Because you remember you waited until 50 to propose.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, Natasha and I started off as friends. We didn't
that is another thing.
meet in a party and decide we like each other. And she gave me real pressure, real trouble.
We ain't telling people how you're stuck, man. Oh, yeah. when I was on the radio, no, we won't go there. This is a story I've told before, but anyway. Librans forever and Leos forever. Leo Libra is a good combination, So they say.
If the Lord put this together, folks, and we continue to do the work, all right? Guys, Saunders,
yes, it is.
Thank you for joining us. And we leave you now in the hands of Kyle and Tim.